Commander Zexthara clicked her mandibles in frustration as she watched the tactical display. The Corvani forces had pinned down her mixed-species battalion on the rocky plateau of Kepler 442b, their plasma artillery creating a deadly no-man's land stretching 3 kilometers to the enemy stronghold. Her fastest scouts, the rabbit-like Velians with their powerful hind legs, could sprint at 60 kilometers per hour, but only for brief bursts before exhaustion set in. The heavily armored Brackens could maintain steady movement, but barely managed 15 kilometers per hour in their exosuits. "Status report," she barked, her translator converting her chittering into standard galactic. Lieutenant Velmar, a Velian, twitched his elongated ears nervously. "Commander, our ammunition runs are taking too long. By the time our fastest runners reach the forward positions, they're too exhausted to carry meaningful supplies. The Corvani keep repositioning their artillery, making supply runs even more dangerous." Zexthara's compound eyes focused on the human section of her forces. 30 soldiers from Earth, led by Captain Sarah Chen. The humans had been assigned to her unit as part of the new Terran integration protocol, and honestly she hadn't expected much. Their physiology seemed unremarkable, bipedal like the Brackens but without natural armor, slower than the Velians, lacking the Zinthari's natural camouflage abilities. They appeared to be the galactic equivalent of average in every measurable way. "What about the humans?" she asked, more out of desperation than hope. Captain Chen stepped forward, her dark eyes studying the battlefield display. "Ma'am, my people can run that distance." Velmar's ears shot upright. "Captain, with respect, that's 3 kilometers of open ground under constant artillery fire. Even our fastest scouts can barely manage half that distance before—" "We don't run fast," Chen interrupted calmly. "We run long." The alien officers exchanged confused glances. Zexthara had studied human physiology reports, but the concept seemed impossible. "Explain." Chen's weathered face carried the hint of a smile. "Commander, humans evolved as persistence hunters. Our ancestors ran down prey animals that were faster, stronger, and better adapted to their environment. We didn't catch them by being faster. We caught them by never stopping." She gestured to her soldiers, who were already checking their gear with practiced efficiency. "My grandmother ran marathons well into her 70s. Humans regularly cover distances of over 40 kilometers for recreation. We have specialized cooling systems, efficient oxygen processing, and skeletal structures specifically adapted for sustained locomotion." Zexthara clicked her mandibles skeptically. "The Corvani artillery will never allow—" "That's where the persistence part comes in," Chen said. "We don't run in straight lines when being hunted. We adapt, we endure, and we keep moving." Within minutes, the human squad was ready. They carried lightweight packs filled with ammunition, medical supplies, and communication equipment. No heavy armor, no energy shields, just humans in standard combat fatigues and their inexplicable confidence. "Frequency 7.2 for coordination," Chen told her communication officer. "Maintain contact with forward positions. If we go silent, keep the supply lines open however you can." Zexthara watched through her tactical scope as the humans began their run. Not a sprint. That would have been suicide in the open terrain. Instead, they moved with a steady, rhythmic pace that seemed almost casual. The Corvani artillery began targeting them immediately, plasma bolts scorching the ground around the running figures. But something extraordinary happened. The humans didn't stop. When artillery fire forced them to veer left, they adjusted their route and maintained their pace. When rocky outcroppings blocked their path, they flowed around the obstacles like water, never breaking stride. When one soldier stumbled, 2 others flanked him, supporting his weight until he recovered, and all 3 continued running as a unit. "Impossible," Velmar whispered. "They've been running for 12 minutes straight across broken terrain under constant fire." The Corvani artillery operators, programmed to calculate intercept points for quick-moving targets, began struggling to track the humans' unpredictable but relentless movement. The plasma bolts, designed to stop fast-moving scouts or heavily armored vehicles, kept missing these strange bipedal creatures who seemed to flow across the battlefield like a slow but unstoppable tide. 23 minutes later, Captain Chen's voice crackled over the comm. Forward position reached, delivering supplies and taking defensive positions. Zexthera stared at the tactical display in disbelief. The humans had covered 3 kilometers of hostile terrain, carrying full combat loads, while under constant artillery fire. They hadn't just survived. They had maintained communication, adapted to changing conditions, and arrived at their destination ready to fight. How? Velmar asked the question they were all thinking. Chen's voice came through the comm again, slightly breathless but steady. Because stopping was never an option, Lieutenant. When you're built for persistence, you don't quit because something gets difficult. You adapt and keep going. Over the following hours, the humans established a supply corridor that changed everything. They ran ammunition to the forward positions, evacuated wounded soldiers, and maintained communication lines, all while under sporadic fire. Other species would attempt similar runs in short bursts, but only the humans maintained the steady, relentless pace that kept supplies flowing consistently. The Corvani, accustomed to fighting enemies who relied on speed, stealth, or heavy armor, found themselves facing an opponent they had never encountered. Creatures who simply refused to stop moving. Their artillery, designed to halt or destroy fast-moving targets, proved ineffective against beings who absorbed hits to their formation and kept running. By the battle's end, Zexthera's forces had successfully held their position and eventually pushed the Corvani back. In her after-action report, she wrote, "Human soldiers demonstrate combat capabilities not reflected in standard physiological assessments. Recommend immediate revision of deployment protocols to maximize their unique endurance characteristics." But privately, she thought about what Captain Chen had said about human evolution, about ancestors who ran down prey, not by being faster, but by never stopping. As she watched the humans continue their supply runs even after the immediate crisis had passed, their steady breathing and rhythmic footsteps echoing across the now quiet battlefield, Zexthera finally understood. Humans weren't the fastest, strongest, or most naturally gifted species in the galaxy, but they possessed something rarer and more valuable: the absolute refusal to quit, backed by bodies specifically evolved to keep going when everything else would fall. That, she realized, might be the most terrifying evolutionary trait any predator species could develop: the simple, relentless determination to never stop moving forward.